Hey, it's me, MLV. Here's chapter 21 of Pinpoint. This one's titled Safe. Shoto leapt from the police car and sprinted to where Kari had pinned the driver to the ground. "You're under arrest," he roared, raising his right arm, ready to freeze him should he move. Movement from the corner of his eye drew his attention, and he looked across to see two other men trying to limp away from where the van had slammed into a tree. "Stop!" Shoto called, throwing his arm out and blasting a wave of ice towards them, freezing them in place. Momo had created some rope with her quirk and was tying the man up on the ground. Kari then trotted over to guard the two other men who had been encased by Shoto's ice. Shoto dropped his arm and ran to the back of the van, swinging the door open. He nearly cried when he saw the sight. There you were, unconscious and bleeding, your arms still wrapped protectively around your grandma. She was moving slightly. He hopped up into the back of the van and knelt down by your grandma. Her eyelids fluttered open and her eyes slowly focused on Shoto's face. She smiled weakly before losing consciousness again. "Shoto, what are their conditions?" the inspector called from behind. "The grandmother's in a critical condition," Shoto called back. "As for Yin..." He reached out and gently cradled your head in his hands, brushing his thumbs across your bloodied, tear-stained, dirty cheeks. He reached for your neck and felt for a pulse. It was strong. "She's alive, but unconscious," he said, shuffling forwards to separate you from your grandma. "We need an ambulance, now," he yelled authoritatively. "On it," the inspector yelled before jumping on the police radio. Shoto moved your grandma off your lap and laid her in the recovery position before scooping you up and holding you against himself. "Yin," he whispered, "you're going to be okay. I'm here now. I'll never let you go." He bent his head down and kissed the top of your head. You were still out cold. Later in the hospital, your eyelids fluttered open. "Where am I?" you thought, blinking as you were blinded by the hospital lights that pierced through your eyes. "Yin, don't move," a gentle masculine voice said from beside you. You turned your head towards the voice, and a pair of beautiful heterochromic eyes met yours. You had an immediate flashback to that day at the markets. Have we met before?" you asked the handsome pair of eyes. He nodded. "Was it at the markets?" you asked, hoping you had the right memory. "Yes, Yin," he replied, almost breathlessly. The fact that you remembered the location that you had met him in caused his heart to beat wildly. "Did I make you a Hessonite gem?" Shoto interjected hurriedly. "I held on to it for 13 years, praying I would find you again," he said, his eyes shining excitedly. "Unfortunately, it was destroyed yesterday." "Oh," you said, unable to tear your gaze away from him as he continued to stare lovingly into your eyes. "How are you feeling?" he asked, finally breaking the silence. "I think I'm okay," you said, smiling weakly. "I'm glad," he said, reaching out and touching your hand gently. You glanced down at where he was touching your hand, and your heart leapt. He rubbed his thumb across the back of your hand, and you looked back up into his face. He'd been staring at you the whole time. You started to feel the heat rising in your face as the reality of a very handsome man caressing your hand set in. "Oh, my grandma," you suddenly remembered. "Where is she?" You tried to sit up. "Whoa, no, don't move." Shoto jumped up and held you still by your shoulders. "She's in a critical condition currently, but she'll be okay, I promise," he said, his face hovering over yours. What is your name?" you asked suddenly, averting your eyes as a blush dusted your cheeks. "Oh, my apologies. My name is Shoto Todoroki." 2 weeks later, your grandma called up the stairs to you. "Yin dear, Shoto's here." You quickly jumped off the lounge and fixed your hair in the mirror before running to the stairs. It had been a week now since your release from hospital, and Shoto had come to visit you every day. Your grandma was doing well as well. She'd made a full recovery and was beyond excited that a handsome hero like Shoto had taken an interest in you. After putting 2 and 2 together, you had told her about the encounter that you and Shoto had that one time at the markets 13 years ago. She was thrilled. "Oh, hello, Yin," he greeted you warmly. He was in a fitted black top with grey slacks, and he looked absolutely stunning in casual clothes. "Hi, Shoto," he said shyly, playing with your hair. "Yin, would you mind showcasing these beautiful gems here and giving me some history on each?" he asked, his eyes shining as he gestured to the many gems around the shop. "I'd love to," you said, walking around the counter and beckoning him to follow you to the first cabinet. "Okay, this one's a Hessonite," he said excitedly. I'm very familiar with this one. May I hold it? Sure, you said, unlocking the cabinet and pulling it out for him. Shoto looked it over and held it to the light. This Hesnite was made relatively recently, he said, feeling the weight of it. The maker of this gem has improved in her technique immensely. He gave you a sidelong glance. You were surprised. How do you know this? You asked him curiously. I've been studying gems for a few years now, he said, looking at you. I also know that this precious stone is the birthstone of the wielder. Yes, it is, you said, shocked. That's my birthstone. How did you... It's mine too, Shoto said mysteriously. What day are you? I'm the 11th of January, he said. Shoto's eyes widened. That's the same as mine. No way, you said excitedly. Well, if that isn't a sign, I don't know what is, your grandma quipped cheekily from the workshop door, giggling before she disappeared out of sight. And there ends chapter 21. Stay tuned for chapter 22.